Welcome to a Champion's Journey podcast. I'm Matt Davidson. From an early age, I've had the privilege of learning from world champions and world-class performers, and I've always been fascinated by what drives them to the pinnacle of achievement. In this podcast, I'll interview high performers to learn more about the habits and rituals which have helped them on the road to championship victory. The intent of a Champion's Journey podcast is to interview not only those who have stood on the top podium in arenas of high-level competition, but to learn from those who have conquered life's greatest challenges and have dared to live life on their own terms. Jeana Billings made her first skydive in 2013 and has been on a mission ever since. In the relatively short time she's been in the sport, she's taken the Formation Skydiving competition world by storm. In 2018, she won the U.S. National Championships in the 8-way event with her team, Paraclete XP8. In 2019, she and XP8 became World Indoor Skydiving Champions, and later that year, she became U.S. National Champion, earning the right to represent the United States in the 8-way Formation Skydiving event at the 2020 World Parachuting Championships in Tanay, Russia. Most recently, she and Team USA 8 won the U.S. National Indoor Skydiving Championships at Paraclete XP Skyventure in Raeford, North Carolina. As if competing in one event at an elite level wasn't demanding enough, she also competes in the 4-way FS event. Her incredible accomplishments have made her a highly sought-after Formation Skydiving coach. She fills what time remains in her busy schedule, mentoring skydivers and teams of all ability levels. Jeana also adroitly balances her commitments as a full-time competitive athlete and coach with being a single mother of 2 teenage daughters. Jeana's intense drive, determination, and all-in level of commitment is an inspiration to us all. Hey, Jeana, how are you doing? Welcome to the podcast.
Good, Matt. Thanks.
I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me.
What's going on with you lately?
Training. We just finished the indoor meet, so had a 31.3 average.
Yep, that was fun. It was fun to fly with you in that. Well, very cool. Let's go back to the beginning of your skydiving career, and I'd just like to ask how you found out about skydiving and what attracted you to it. How did you start?
There's no fun, elaborate story, really. I was driving to work, actually, and saw parachutes falling, and, what's going on over there? So I drove over there and asked them, and said we're doing tandems. So I asked how I can do it, signed up, went. Couldn't get anybody to go with me. I think I talked my dad into it for about 2 minutes, and he changed his mind. But when I went to do the tandem, it was just a one-time thing. And I think after that, I was like, well, I don't know if it's for me or not. I don't have the time. I was running a business, had a couple kids. It was just, I wanted to see what it was like. I've never done anything. I was kind of stuck in the world of work and family. And it took me, probably a few months before I even decided I wanted to go again. And instead, I didn't want anybody to be in control of me. So I started Googling how to skydive, where do I start? I want to do it on my own. And I found out the closest place was West Tennessee. It was 4.5 to 5 hours away from me. Yeah, so wow. There were a couple places around doing tandems, of course, but none of them had a student program. And I lived in Tullahoma, Tennessee. So it was before they had their student program there. So I did it. I was like, all right, well, I'll go try it out. And it was winter, 2013. So I went, made the trip for the whole weekend. I was like, sure, I can get a few jumps in. I made it to 2 jumps, and I had a really bad landing on AFF and sprained my ankle, broke a couple bones in my foot.
Oh, man.
I didn't even know it either. It was a terrible thing. I was like, I'm ready to go again. How was your landing? It was terrible. Are you okay? I'm great. Well, let's take your shoe off and see. Maybe I'm not so great. And the worst part is I had to drive back the 4.5 to 5 hours with a hurt foot. So I got home and then wobbled around Sonic for a few days with a boot on. I never even took a day off work. And after that, they started sending me cards and messages like, happy to have you back, get well soon, I know you're going to be back out. And I was like, wait a minute. These people, the environment they had, they were super nice. I was like, okay, well, it's a business. At first, I thought they're just going to take my money and run.
Right.
But no, they were super involved afterwards. And the way that the whole community came together at the drop zone to say, hey, come on back, we need you back here. Anything you need from us, it just kind of roped me in. And that was the selling factor for finish an AFF. So it took me a little longer than most people, I think.
Awesome. Yeah, we talk about it in the podcast. I've mentioned it so many times before how awesome the community in skydiving is. Do you remember who some of those people were?
Paul Golson was one of my AFF instructors, and he was a huge influence on it. But unfortunately, I didn't continue going through West Tennessee because I went back for more jumps. But then around the time of about midway through my AFF program, Chattanooga Skydiving opened up a student program, which was only an hour away. Much better than 5 hours.
Yeah.
So I ended up finishing it at Chattanooga.
Nice. What attracted you to competition? Did that come later, or was it something that you wanted to do immediately? Did you even know about it when you first started skydiving?
Yeah, and I actually tell this story quite a bit because I had no idea there was a competition world. And we were just doing the fun jumps. Hey, we're going to jump out of the plane, and I'll touch your grip here, and then we'll grip this one, and we'll turn here. And it was fun for a little bit, but it only lasted me about 50 jumps before I got completely bored with it. the non-structure part of it,
Right.
The smaller drop zones don't have a lot of the coaches and the stuff that we have at XP, so it's a little bit of a different environment. And I was actually on Facebook just looking through all the drop zones. There has to be something somewhere. And we found Skydive Atlanta with Scott Franklin, and it said Rookie Skills Camp. I was like, I think I'm a rookie. We can go do that. And so my friend Jolene Dressel and I were like, we're going to go to this Rookie Skills Camp at Skydive Atlanta. We showed up, and do you know Scott Franklin?
I know of him. Yeah.
He has this infectious personality. It was a total turn on as far as like into skydiving. It was the picture perfect poster child for skydiving. Yeah, come on over here. Let me show you what we're going to do. And he brings out these big posters that Rhythm had of the colors and the names. And he said, you're going to be tail. I'm like, wait, I have a name and a job? Hold on. It was just the world changed. And then we started going over exits and do this formation and that formation. So now I have something to study. And I have a purpose rather than I'm just going to jump out of a plane and play patty cake with somebody. So it was a huge eye-opener. And from then on, that's kind of what skyrocketed. I didn't do any more fun jumps. I don't do very many fun jumps. And they are fun, but they're still structured.
Yeah.
If somebody tries to get me on a plane, we're just going to roll with it and throw an exit out, I'm going to completely panic. I need to know an exit count. I need to know where we're going. So it went from there. And then Jolene and I, of course, were like, now we're going to do a team. And started interviewing people for teams, and no one even knew who we were. And we had this like 4-inch or 3-inch binder of here's the job that we're going to have. This is how many jumps we're going to make, and this is how much it's going to cost us. We're going to go here and go there. And so many people kept saying, I just want to do this for fun. I don't want to do a team. We scared so many people off that we ended up hiring a couple player coaches to skydive. So that was my first year.
It scared them off just because it was overly structured? Or?
Yeah, I think so. They were like, wait a minute. I just want to have fun. I don't want to go in. And we ended up throwing the binder away, of course, because it was a little too much. But we were both business owners, so that's kind of how we worked.
Right. Yeah, I'm the same way when it comes to fun jumping. I love to do it, love to jump, but I prefer the structure as well. Friend Jeremy Cosner, he tries to get me out every now and then and takes me on a free fly jump or something. And he's taught me some sit skills, and it's just because I've kind of I just like that structure. I like the training for competition. What aspect of competition do you find most challenging, and what strategies do you have in place to better prepare yourself for those?
I would say the most challenging part of any competition is my own mental performance, not necessarily the physical part. If I can control what's going on in my head, then the body usually just takes over. So I try to find that balance of being calm and aggressive enough to get the job done and ready to improvise, sort of like multitasking. So I try to find that in there. As far as how I prepare for it, I think that comes with the whole visualizing. And everybody in skydiving says visualize, right? Visualize. Well, what does that mean? And then, relax. I am relaxed. So I am breathing. All of those things. I think it's just finding your own way of doing it, rather than I'm saying I'm relaxed, but what level of relaxation do I really need to perform? And I think that was a challenging part for me to find the balance.
Was it something that, like, how long did it take you to find that?
I'm still finding it, Matt. Every competition, every draw, even in training, I'm still finding it. But I know when I feel it, and I know when I get done with the meet or when I get done with that draw, it's like that was the one. That was it. And you try to imitate it every single time, and I can't always get it, but I can at least start learning how to troubleshoot when I'm veering on the wrong path of what I know I want out of it, like how I want to feel from it.
There's so many factors that play into it, right? So many things can change when we travel to other countries or just another state, to go to a nationals or something like that, and your environment has changed, then you have to learn to adapt and overcome, and it's there's so many things that play into it. I'm the same way, where I'm still trying to find it. There have been, several times where it's worked out and I feel like I've dialed it in, and then other times where I'm off the mark a bit.
I feel like I'm a little bit more resilient on the traveling. I know a lot of people have certain ways, like I can't take overnight flights, or I have to make sure that I get this many hours of sleep. I feel like I'm a little bit tougher on that side, so I have an advantage over, normal people. I can sleep on a concrete floor in a couple hours and be just fine the next morning, So I'm a little resilient in that. I think what gets in my way the most, and I think everybody has to figure out what is it that bothers you the most. What do you have to fix, right? We're all individuals, and mine would be the control factor. I have to get in the mindset of just do my job. I can't control anything else, and I have to kind of shut the noise out around me and just try to do what I can do. And the sleep, I can get to you. And the traveling, it can get to you, but again, it's all just mental, right? And
for sure.
Yeah.
You were talking about control. Do you have any issues during skydives when you see something? We talk about distraction control, but when you see something that distracts you, and do you start trying to figure out how you can control into that? And does that affect your performance at all?
That is my number one reason for brain locks.
Oh, yeah.
So for sure, it's one of those things of if I catch something out of the glimpse of my eye, like, ooh, was that grip there? I don't think it was there. Or if I know I jumped a key, or if I'm wondering why our buzzard piece just walked, I have to force it out immediately, because if I allow myself to go down that black hole, it's doomsday for me. And so, yeah, for sure, that's...
Yeah, I've had that as well, and I find that experience definitely helps that. When I started jumping with airspeed, and especially during the all random fast sequences, I was having a hard time with that. And, it's twice as fast, 4-way as 8-way. So especially with that crew, and, there would be some kind of problem that would distract me, and I'd brain lock, and
we're a grip that's not taken solid, or they took it on the wrong part of your arm. You're like, wait a minute, was that?
And just that small thing. Just that small thing can throw you off for sure. In addition to being a high-level competitor, you're also in high demand as a Formation Skydiving coach. Do you feel that coaching has helped you be a better competitor?
Yeah, for sure. I think it goes back to that old saying, if you can teach somebody, you yourself will get better. But I think it's a little bit more than that, too. I only started coaching so much the last year and a half, and it's a confidence thing. And I'm learning every time I'm coaching, too. So it's, one, I get confident enough that I've done this before, and I've done it just recently to where I'm still new as you are, and I know what it feels like to go through that, and that's exactly what I feel like I can offer. Rather than having 20 years of experience, you can kind of get lost in the moment of what did it feel like to be so brand new, and I have a little bit of that. So with that, I use it to my advantage, and every time I'm coaching, I'm also training, 4-way or 8-way for that matter. If there's something that I want to work on, I make sure that I'm trying to work on it when I'm coaching other people too. And I think the confidence with that for sure, and being able to put things into words and being able to feel a piece with a different piece partner, you can kind of get spoiled with your piece partner. You know each other so well that when you fly with someone else, oh, that's what was happening in block 6. So now I need to go back and, so there's so many different things that help with being able to coach people rather than just having the sterile environment that we're in with 8-way.
Yeah, oftentimes when you're coaching, if you're doing like a 4-on-4 skills camp, sometimes you're in a different slot as well, and that helps you, I would imagine, it does for me, get a better overall picture. And also it's like B-slot training. When you're doing B-slot training, you feel more of what your peace partner wants and, what he or she has been, saying all along.
I'm sorry I did that to you. I remember now. Yep.
What did you do before you decided to dedicate yourself completely to a career in skydiving?
Well, I've done a lot of things. 911 dispatcher, juvenile probation officer, mental health counselor, but most recently and for the longest time, 20 years of that was Sonic Drive-In. So I owned and operated 2 of those before cutting the cord and going to skydiving.
Oh, was that a difficult transition for you? I mean, I would imagine that you've got, especially doing it for 20 years, you've got some pretty deep roots in those businesses. I'm
still working through the transition, to be honest. I just had a conversation today about it and how things are different for me. Running 2 businesses, you're always on the go and you're scrounging for time to get things done. It's highly stressful. I guess it's similar to skydiving in a way, but not really. But really changing from Sonic to skydiving was more along the lines of I'm losing a little bit of my foundation that I grew up with. Sonic was my first job, so I worked my way up, and then I became owner, put me through college. It financially supported the family. It was everything to me, and losing that was a little bit hard. It took me several months, a long time of making that decision. But I think it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. It's the only thing that's different, the biggest thing that's different is I don't necessarily have that 9-to-5 job I have to show up at. Now I get to show up to work. So it's definitely a completely different mindset of like, yes, I get to go work today. I'm waiting at home. Is it Friday yet? Whatever it is, rather than, can I get a day off?
No, yeah.
Can I get 5 hours off? Can I turn my phone off? I don't go through that nearly as much anymore. So much higher quality of life.
And how involved were you in the management of the businesses? Were you?
Well, being an owner-operator required me to work in there as well as manage it behind the scenes. And with Sonic, it's never ending. We have so many teenagers. It's fast food, so you don't get the top of the line quality employees that you would who people are going to college for. These are kids mostly, and I raised most of them from 15 or 16 all the way through college, and so it's a lot of stress involved. And then anytime we were closed, Thanksgiving or Christmas or early on 4th of July, who's in there regrouting the tile? I am.
Oh, wow.
I never got off. It was the maintenance that needed to be done. We got to pull things out and clean it. It's on the day that we're closed because I can't do it while we're open. So it was one of those things, and it's done well for me. I don't want to badmouth it by any means because it definitely has made my life what it is today. But it was a different world.
Do you still maintain contact with some of the kids that you helped raise?
Oh, yeah. They're still all over my Facebook. Even my juvenile probation kids are still all over my Facebook and still message me every once in a while. And it's a connection you don't really lose. I think it's similar to being on a team with somebody, whether it's an intermediate team or an open class team. You kind of have that battle bond, so to speak.
Right.
And I think some of that's there with them. And especially, like you said, when I raised them, if I hire them at 15 and they're working through high school into a college, there's a lot of lessons and a lot of bonds that are built through that. So they still message me.
Yeah, I bet. I wonder if it's kind of like, comparing it to when you're coaching a team and the mentorship that you pass along to the people on those teams.
Yeah, I think it's a lot like that.
What were the biggest reasons for you to decide to make that change? What was the driving force behind it?
On the personal side of it, it was more of I'm unhappy. I felt this big pull between skydiving and Sonic, and and I started traveling more and working less, and the business was still running itself because I had a great crew and managers, so I could remotely manage the business, so to speak. But I felt the pull to skydiving so much more that it actually caused a problem with work, and we had several meetings with my supervisors, and they were like, hey, we're going to do something. You're traveling way too much. Well, let me show you my training schedule. Can we work this out? Can we do this? Mm-hmm. And eventually it came down to the point of I'm just going to have to make a decision. And it was, I could continue skydiving on the fun teams and, weekend warriors and go hang out at the drop zone locally as long as I didn't travel as much. But if I wanted to really pursue the top level teams and really achieve some of the dreams and goals that I had in skydiving, I had to make a choice. Especially being in Tennessee, it wasn't an easy travel thing to XP every weekend. So we ended up having that conversation with the supervisors, like, okay, what do I have to do to sell out? And they're like, what? It's not what I expected. Sorry. So we worked it out, and they were very accommodating with everything. But yeah, the pull between both of those definitely was it. I don't think the only other thing that would have stopped me entirely if my girls would have been like, hey, Mom, I'm not down. I don't want to move. I don't want to do any of it. And then that would have been the stop sign for me, but they're very supportive.
And that's really cool that they're that supportive. One of your daughters you had out of the drop zone packing, right?
Oh, yeah. She was only 15, so she'd worked at Sonic for a little bit, and she's like, I don't want to keep working here on the weekends. She tried it over here in Aberdeen, that Sonic. So she kept, hey, can I get my nails done? Hey, well, let's talk about earning some money. So we showed her how to pack, and she's a very strong girl. She plays softball, so she's built, and she was made for packing. She did pack for me quite a bit. I was kind of the guinea pig for everybody else, so you're welcome if she packed for you after she packed for me. I got all the cutaways. But she ended up liking it, and now she's at the thing of where she has a weekend off. Hey, can I come out there and pack? Well, it's kind of cold. Nobody's out there. But this summer, sure.
Yeah.
She liked the money. The cash money was great for it.
Yeah, for sure. It's Nick, when I was staying out with him, Nick Hemlin out in Arizona, his son Torsten goes out to skydive Arizona, and sometimes he'll come down, with us at Paraclete XP for the camps, and we'll pack and make a lot of money. Yeah,
oh, yeah.
And he seems to really enjoy it.
It's a lot of cash flow for a teenager.
Yeah, a lot of cash flow for anybody.
For sure.
Going back a little bit to your transition, how did it make you feel? I imagine it would be, you'd have some mixed emotions, maybe, exciting on the one hand, but scary on the other.
Oh, yeah, scary for sure. Scary for sure in the sense of what if it goes wrong and I have to run back in with my tail between my legs and ask my bosses to give me a job back and then work all over as a car hop again and work my way back up, so that was in the back of my head. But I think ultimately, once I decided that, hey, whatever I do in skydiving, I'm going to put all that I've done with, managing the business, all that's me into it, and it's going to be great. I can't mess it up, unless I fall flat on my face to where I don't care anymore. But as much as I love the sport, I couldn't go wrong. So once I decided that, I think it definitely made it easier. Did that answer your question? What was the question, actually?
Yeah, I just asked you how you felt
scary,
during the transition.
yeah. And then still, like I said, I'm still going through some of those emotions even now because I worked so much in, college with the kids and then Sonic that I wasn't home very much. I was home every night, but I didn't get to see the girls as much. And now I get to see them a lot more, except for when I'm traveling for team, but I do get to see them a lot more. And now I'm kind of in the mom role, and I'm having the feelings of I have no purpose but to be a maid in the house and clean up after everybody. So that is a little bit different rather than my phone going off all the time and putting fires out at work. So the feelings that I have are more personal in the mother side of it. Like I have more time to think about how I could be doing things right or wrong with the kids, and I have more time to think about, are you doing your homework? Whereas, when I was at Sonic, I didn't even have time to even look and check their grades. It was like, hey, you got your homework done? Great, moving on. So it's a different a different feeling in that. The scary was there. Exciting, definitely. I was like, oh, I'm on to a new journey. I can move forward from everything. And scary again because I'm leaving all of my family, but then exciting because it's a fresh start and I get to be a mom. So many different ups and downs. It was like a roller coaster ride. I feel sorry, and I apologize to anybody who was around at that time too. So I didn't know what I was doing.
I have a lot of respect for people like you that do the, for lack of a better term at this point, cut away their their old lives and transition to all in committing to the skydiving world, and you see it quite a bit, especially when people want to get up to a high level. Mm-hmm. It takes that level of commitment. So my hat's off to you.
Yeah, thanks. I had a coach one time tell me, hey, I know you'd live out of a cardboard box if you could just skydive. And I laughed about it, ha, 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 because it was early on. And then I realized, he was right. I mean, now, after a few years, and it's only a short time frame in it, but, when you leave a career where you never worry about money, everything's materialistic. You're going for the big house and the nice cars and the name brand clothes. And then you get into skydiving, you're like, none of that matters. It doesn't matter anymore. Now, and then it turned into, well, what's a jump ticket, and what am I going to give up for this jump ticket, and how many jump tickets was that weekend vacation, you know what I mean? So it turns into that, and then it takes another phase into kind of where I am now, and then if you're paying the bills, great, and if you have to downsize, great. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, when you have the time to spend with your family, or when you're actually doing something that you love, you're getting paid for it. Like, again, where I'd said, I have to go to work. No, I get to go to work. I get to go skydive. Or I'm messaging people, hey, I got a day off. Anybody want to go to the tunnel this weekend? So it definitely fixes everything that I was scared about before. Chasing the American dream that doesn't exist.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it seems like too many people get caught up in that in that loop. And I was going to ask you as well, did some of those trappings feel empty to you when you were in that environment?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I didn't even know what I was missing before, when, you're just doing better. And I don't think we've ever really talked about like how I grew up, but I didn't come from a lot. And
yeah, please. Tell us all about it.
I was the first person in my family to even graduate high school. And so when it came time for college, it was like no one could help me. No one could help me even apply. I just knew I was going to do it. I was going to do something different from everyone. And I got pregnant a week before high school graduation with Julia. So that was the whole, oh, well, congratulations, you're going to be on welfare now, and you're going to be amounted to nothing. But I did, and I pushed through, went to high school, graduated high school, graduated college, worked at Sonic, worked my way up, went through college. So all of that made me kind of chase it a little bit more, because I had something to prove, right? I wanted to prove everybody wrong. Well, look at what I've achieved, and I've got this, and I've got that, and I can buy this, and I look nice, and so I did. I chased it more than I think most people do. I think it may even come easier to some, but when you're fighting that hard to break a mold, then not only your kids rely on you, but even sometimes your family members are like, hey, can you help me out? And hey, can you give me some advice here? Just because of the life experience, it's a different role that I had to play for myself. And when you stop chasing that getting trapped into it, like, well, somebody else is over here and going on vacations. Well, how do I do that? Okay, now I got to work more at Sonic. Now maybe I need another Sonic, just so we can go on these nice extravagant vacations. And I didn't even know that there was more to life than just chasing that. And I never traveled, never been on a plane or anything before skydiving.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was my first wake up call of like, whoa. And I remember the canopy ride, not the free fall, that was terrifying to me, but the canopy ride. Now it's completely reversed, but my first one was the canopy. It was still, and I remember when I landed, like the grass was greener, and everybody was just so nice and happy, even if they weren't. It was just some cartoon that I was living in my head,
It's all the endorphins from
yeah. And I think that was it. And like I said, it took me a couple months to think about it and let it sit in long enough for the ride to be over. And then I realized it was over. And I'm looking, makes you look at your life a little bit. And I had no experience of living except for working. Work, do this, get this nice thing, and prove yourself to everybody around you. But I wasn't proving myself to me. And I wasn't doing anything that drove me, that really drove me. You know, I was only fighting everything. So that's a big difference.
Wow. It's, I didn't know about some of your earlier lives. Having this conversation is enlightening to me about your drive and your determination and kind of where that started. You said you were involved in corrections as well. What was your role in that? And did that, I would imagine, that would have taught you a lot about human beings and psychology. And, so after you tell us about that a little bit, then I'll have a question for you as far as what that has taught you, that and being a coach and being a business owner, and if that's made you a better competitor and a coach. But yeah, if you could tell us something about the correction.
So again, I had a lot to prove. So I was, working full time. I was a manager at Sonic at this point, not the owner. And I had the girls, both of them were young, going through college, and forced myself to, to graduate and get it all completed because I'm going to be something big. And so the first thing I did after graduating was apply for jobs. And I did the mental health counseling first, but the juvenile probation really stood out. So that's kind of what I did most of my time as the juvenile probation. And I was doing that and working at Sonic.
Wow.
Well, here's the reason why, because I went to college for so many years, and the juvenile probation paid less than what I was making as an assistant manager at Sonic. So I couldn't afford to just quit Sonic, but I still had something to prove, and I didn't want to tell everybody. At that time, I was immature and young, and yes, I had a lot, but I wasn't proud of working at Sonic. I wanted something to be proud of, and telling people I was a juvenile probation officer made me proud.
Okay.
So I was willing to risk it all. Just give me that title, and I'll work both jobs. Yeah.
Both are full-time?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was a terrible decision. I don't know why I did it, but that's why. And so...
And I'm sorry, how long did you say you did that for?
A couple years, yeah,
Wow.
before I just burned the candle at both ends and had to make a choice. And the obvious choice was Sonic, and then I, became the owner-operator and made more money. But working with the juvenile probation, like you said, it definitely taught me a lot about people. Most of the time, the kids in juvenile probation are good kids. They just don't have the right environment, or they don't have good parents. There's circumstances, but in all of those circumstances, these kids have a choice to make. And they can say, hey, am I going to be the victim of this circumstance, or am I going to power through it and change it? And I think I offered a lot to the kids by my story. I lived in a tent for months as a kid. And so when they hear, like, wait, really? Huh? Yeah, I did. I showered in a pool before, buddy. You can do so much more just by saying I'm not a victim. And
did that help you relate to them more, to give you some credibility?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I think that's where the connection happened, and I think that's why I'm still, in contact with a lot of them, because it worked, and giving some insight to it allowed me to see where they're coming from and relate to them. And hey, how do I need to talk to this kid versus how I need to talk to this kid to reach? Everybody's different. And it helped. And then even with Sonic, it was the same thing. I need to get the most I can out of these people who don't want to be here so I can perform, and we together as a team can meet all of our goals. So, it's all psychology, right? It's all managing people.
Are there any of those tactics that you can talk about that would help drive people? I know it's probably a case-by-case situation, but are there any common threads that you can talk about?
Yeah, for sure. It's a case-by-case. Common threads. You can probably narrow the general public down to a few different personality types, and something that Kirk talks about all the time is finding out what they do for a profession, so you can see how their mind works and how they click. And so he's helped me a lot with that in the coaching part of it. But common threads, something for sure is like, I'll give you a great example of how BK coached me. So my first 4-on-4 camps, this was 2015 maybe, and BK was coaching me, and he was like, well, what do you do for a living? And I told him, I run a Sonic. And he said, well, you run a Sonic? Why are you being so timid in here? Well, just tell me what to do. I don't know what I'm doing or where I'm...
That's what he said?
Yeah. he said, put your hat on, and I want you to key it like you mean it, like you got someplace to be. I was like, yes, sir, okay. And then it kind of clicked to me through that, was like, I do wear a hat. I wear a hat at different places, and the way that he coached me brought out the best in me. And so it also helps, I think, when you're talking about people, is we all just need to have somebody word it the right way. And that's why I always encourage people, get different coaches, because we're all saying the same thing. It's just a matter of who's going to connect to you.
Yeah.
And my personality was, I do take charge. If the going gets tough, I can just step in and make quick decisions. But the other side of the coin is I'm okay with just being told what to do at the same time. And then there's people who have a really hard time stepping up and reacting under the pressure, And so you have to find out what it is that they do and how they can, what's the word I'm looking for, how they can maximize their performance in skydiving. Because some people just want to skydive just to skydive. But when you're a competitor, and most of the people that I coach are, they want to skydive to win.
Yeah.
And so generally, I think we all kind of have that small personality that we want to win. So I feel like there's that, and then there's the fun weekend crowd that you get a lot of. It may be too much. Like with tailspin, if I'm yelling at them, hey, you're better than that, I wouldn't do that to a fun weekend team. They're like, I hate this. Right. I don't want to do this anymore. So I think the competitive side of it is where we all are. That's the personality that you're talking about, like the common thread of there's kind of a separation in there, right? Mm-hmm. And I think once you step over that line, now you're fresh meat.
Yeah, for sure. You hit the nail on the head with BK. Mm-hmm. He was my team leader for a number of years on the Golden Knights, and he's great at learning what different people need mm-hmm. to help drive them forward and take the next steps. And he's great at managing people in that respect, for sure.
Yeah, he'll make you a maniac.
Yeah, he will. I think he was. I remember him telling a story about Michelle. Working with Michelle, and the team's like, "You need to be a killer. Come on!" Mm-hmm. And now she's like, "Yeah, I'm a killer." She is. Yeah. Like watching her key one of those jumps that we're redoing at the last indoor competition, where she was keying at G,
to the B,
going to the
G to the B. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she was
the famous move.
She was doing that with some authority. Yeah. Last year, you won the Indoor Skydiving World Championships in France with Paraclete XP8. What was your training like leading up to that competition, and how did you feel leading up to round one?
Oh, the indoor meet at France. Crash course is probably the best word to put that, because XP8 before then, we were we made like 20 jumps the year before the outdoor nationals, and we before that I think 8 jumps before nationals. So it was a great team to be on, because I was learning so much with so many like mentors that I had and the heroes in the skydiving. But when we did the indoor meet, it was definitely, hey guys, we're doing this for real now. We're playing for real. We only have a couple months to do it, so put your big girl pants on and get in here. So it was an eye opener. We definitely did a lot of tunnel to prepare for it. And even if it wasn't, I can't remember, don't quote me on this, but I think maybe it was like 14 hours of tunnel. But in my world, that's a crap load of tunnel from where I just came from. And in 8-way, in 4-way, I'd done quite a bit more at that time. But in 8-way, because we were just kind of a throw together team until we accidentally won the nationals when you guys left in 2018. So we definitely said we're going to win, and that's when it became to, okay, here we go, we're doing it. We did the hours and the work, and when we got there, it was like, okay, now we're actually here. This is actually happening, and I felt immensely overwhelmed. And a lot of pressure not to let down my heroes. It's like, don't be that guy. And there were so many mixed emotions going on in there. I had to force myself, like, I belong here. Yeah.
Did you feel well prepared going into round one?
I felt as prepared as I could have been with the time given.
Okay.
I definitely felt prepared with round one of just like even this indoor nationals with this new lineup, just because of the time that we put in. At least I have a full season of training. Before the France meet, it was not a full season of training. It was the crash course of training, sink or swim kind of training.
Yeah,
and Michelle and I for sure had the disadvantage because, we're flying in there with Kirk and BK, John, and the rhythm guys. And we're like, oh, hey, guys. So we definitely have big shoes to fill.
But that's great. When you want to get better at anything, surround yourself with people that
exactly.
That are on the level where you want to be, and it'll bring you up pretty quickly. You'll feel that pressure to perform for sure. Before we get too far forward, I want to talk a bit about your four-way progression and the teams that you've been on, and whether that helped you get up to that level in eight-way leading up to the indoor competition in France. And does four-way, do you feel that it better prepares you just because of the pace? If you can shed some light.
Yeah. I think four-way and eight-way both, I highly recommend anybody who's going to do four-way or eight-way, do the other, because they both are two different animals, but they both benefit, in my experience, which is minimal, but they both benefit you. So I started, 2015 was the year that Jolene and I had, we had Glenn Lambert and John D'Annunzio as our player coaches for Southern Mix. And then I took all of 2016 off. And then 2017, we did intermediate again with the girls team. And let me back up, sorry. 2015, I did four-way and eight-way, my first year at any competition or any kind of structured skydiving. So we did the Southern Mix, and then I did the first year of the Blocksmiths. I was the OG of the Blocksmiths in 2015. So that's how I had the introduction to eight-way. And that came about because my four-way team didn't have the amount of time that me and Jolene thought we needed, because we had John and Glenn. They were like, yeah, we're only going to do a couple hundred jumps, and me and Jolene were like, we need more training. So we thought, well, eight-way will help me. At least I'll get some experience, and Kirk Werner's coaching, so at least we'll get some coaching along the lines, and it'll make us better. So it definitely made me better, I think, for sure. Seeing the bigger picture, now I'm setting up with 7 other people instead of just 3 other people, and I don't have 2 player coaches to hold my hand, I was in big girl zone. And then, of course, took off 2016. 2016 was XP8's first tryout year that I was around for. And that's when I actually made the team, but then I took off the year. And then I came back in 2017 and was on XP8, and then did the girls' intermediate team. I think we had an 11 average that year. And then 2018, again with XP8. And at this point, it was Savage for that year with four-way, because I had tried out for R2G and didn't make it. So I was like, okay, well, they don't think I'm ready. I'm going to show them I'm ready. And so we put together a team with Tony Massari and Greg Oldendick, and my first year of advanced, but we did like a 17.4 average. So I was really excited about that.
Nice.
And then, of course, eight-way. I think we did 20 jumps that year for eight-way. And that was the year the nights, it was a hurricane, and so they had to fly back home, and we won nationals. And that was the jump start. And now it was time to go big. And that's kind of what happened. 2019 is where, the story tells itself of XP8 and the French indoor. And then now I tried out again for R2G, and I made it this time.
Nice.
So I was with R2G for that year, and we broke the 20 average. So definitely feel like both of those together and aligning myself with so many good influences and kind of sticking around, even though eight-way was a nightmare for a couple of years. It was like, oh, we show up for training. Oh, there's no training. Oh, who's going to be here? It was just, it can be a mess sometimes. And even with four-way, it can be a mess. But when you stick through it, and then the stars align, and now we've got, the dream team lineup, it's definitely worth all of it. Four-way with the pace of it, I can't really say it helped me, because I got to be honest, the eight-way was way faster than any four-way that I'd ever done before. Not the same now, actually. It can go both ways now. I'm kind of on the fence between four-way and eight-way with the pace of it, because I think 8-way kind of slows down for me sometimes. I have a lot of sit still. But 4-way, when it's good 4-way, it definitely goes much faster and you're more alert. But with both of them, I remember last year before nationals when we were warming up with 8-way and then we warmed up with 4-way. I was like, guys, are we going slow? Because I broke off from this jump and I'm not even breaking a sweat or breathing heavy. We need to pick up the pace. And we look at it and we timed ourselves like, hey, that's a pretty good score. We did over a 21 on that jump. What are you talking about, Jeana? Oh, okay. So it must just be the 8-way thing that I'm comparing it to. So I think definitely helps with both of them because 8-way's bigger moves sometimes, and then it's like I said, it's seeing a lot and kind of eliminating some of the noise because it can be noisier with 8-way, and 4-way is not so much of the bigger moves, but quicker, and like you said, more heads up, especially when it comes to randoms and stuff in there. So yeah, I haven't really experienced the 26 outdoor average, only, the indoor average. We had a 27 indoor average for 4A, I think was our highest average.
That's awesome.
So,
yeah, you were talking about the skydive where you weren't breathing hard or anything on breakoff. I think that's a trapping that a lot of younger competitors, especially, that's something I had to learn was, if I'm breathing hard, unless the skydive dictates it, it usually means that I was moving inefficiently or we were moving inefficiently as a team, and it feels like you're going faster, but it's a lot of wasted movement. So a lot of times the jumps that you don't think have yielded a big score do just because it was so smooth and so efficient.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
If you don't mind me asking, what was the reason you took a year off? I don't think I even realized you had a whole year off.
Yeah. I had a lot of things back home. I had a surgery that I went through, so that took several months that I wasn't going to be able to compete. And then I had just taken over another Sonic, so there was two kind of overlapping, and it was just a lot at the time. And so I had to make the decision between that. I did make the decision between skydiving and family life for that year. And I think if I wouldn't have made a decision then, I may not have made the second right decision later when the opportunity appeared again. Like, hey, make a choice here.
Oh, okay. So you felt it better prepared you to make that decision? Yeah,
definitely. Because when I was in skydiving, again, now I knew what I was missing. Before, I didn't even know what I was missing,
right.
And when I didn't for that year and I took it off, I definitely felt it. It's like a piece of you is gone for sure, and you can find yourself in this whole depressed, I've got nothing for myself. I guess I'll just go to work again.
Oh, yeah.
The daily grind. So if I hadn't experienced it without it for that year, I may have been talked into staying, but I'm glad I experienced it.
Cool. We talked about the way you felt going up to round one. What mental strategies do you use to deal with competition anxiety, or what we refer to as round one jitters?
I don't drink coffee before round one. That's a number one rule, and I've made sure that I stick to it. I learned that lesson the hard way. I think something that I do, and I'm probably going to be in big trouble for even saying this, but when I'm sitting there, before I even settle into the visualizing on the plane, I have this whole pep talk I give myself, I'm better than you, I'm better than you, I'm better than you, I'm going to beat you, I'm going to beat you, and I have this whole thing of when you're looking at yourself in the mirror, and it's very easy to talk yourself down, oh, I remember I was making this mistake here, don't do it, what grip was I taking on that, So I have the whole pep talk before I even start visualizing so I can get my head right of whatever happens, I just have to trust that the training is there, but my confidence has to be there, number one. And that's kind of why I'm like, you don't exist and you don't exist. Sorry, I messed up the microphone.
Oh, it's all right.
But the round one, and I think the coffee thing, it's probably just in my head too, but it definitely helps because I'm a big coffee drinker and I know when Java Jeana comes out, it's not a good thing when it's before round one.
There's a name for the monster.
Yeah,
Huh?
Michelle gets to be quoted on that one.
Java Jeana, that's great.
So we have to keep that in there. But something else that I try to do with like the first jump, and it's never realistic, but whenever we have training and we get the jumps ahead of time, I'll look at them and I'll engineer them in my head, but the number one jump I try to focus on more. Because I know for competition, you get that jump the night before, and you're dreaming about that jump. You're in the shower thinking about that jump. Everything you do revolves around that jump. And so we have a big board at home that we'll write all the jumps on for our next training weekend. And jump one, I try to force that into round one. Because I know round one for sure can be a make or break. You want to go through the gates running because you want to dominate right off the top, but you don't want to go over the line to where you just fall and crash everything and you look like a big dummy in there flopping around like a dead fish. So I try to imitate what round one's going to be like. I never get it in training, but I try.
Yeah, that's something that's super hard to get in training for sure. The only time I really get it is if it's been a while since we've jumped before, so you already have kind of the, it's been a little while since I've jumped, so I'm excited about that, and that just kind of adds to those excited feelings and the adrenaline on top of that. But yeah, it is something that I constantly try to recreate, but yeah, it's very difficult. Your strategy is really interesting, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all, because we do, I think, as people and as competitors, we tend to focus on the negative parts, right? When we go to debrief, a lot of it is the mistakes we made and how do we fix those mistakes. And I can see if you're too focused on that, that can definitely, play a negative part in your psyche. So getting yourself into that positive mental state, that dominant state, that's what competition is all about. So I don't see anything wrong with that at all. So we were talking about your visualization process. What is your process like, and how do you fit that into your regular training regimen?
Visualization. So everybody has their own way of doing it. I think I tend to visualize a little bit slower because I want it to be perfect. And if I can do it slow and I do it perfect, then I think the adrenaline and the nerves kind of take up for some of the pace that comes in the skydive. And then if something's not perfect in there, at least I can kind of improvise and just keep going through it, and it won't catch me by surprise as much. So I do that, and then of course in the plane, you have your moments of when you're going to visualize. I think everybody kind of has I do it when we shut the door on the way up because I'm most nervous in the plane. I get motion sickness too in the plane sometimes. So it's one of those things that we got to get off the ground.
Just to interject real quick, I'd never been motion sick in a plane before like we were in Arizona when we had that bad weather that day, and it was so bumpy, and it was just jump after jump. I was green. I think you said something to me when we got down.
Talk about working on your mental psyche, right?
Yeah.
That messes with your visualization. And so that's what I try on the first 1,000 feet when the plane's taking off, and I know I'm the most nervous, and just not from competition at that point. It's just the plane ride itself and everything that I'm feeling. So if I can be calm in that first 1,000 feet of visualizing the skydive and keeping it perfect and slow, then I know, okay, seatbelts come off, then I can relax a little bit. And then another one is I'll do the exit separately. And again, from foot, where does my foot go? Where is my hand placement? And all of the steps that go into it, and the deep breath before, all the small little minute details, I try to keep it. And it's very similar with every single exit or every single dive in the point of I don't get so caught up on anything negative if I'm trying to see everything perfect. And then every once in a while, of course, those thoughts pop in your head ooh, what happened here? Or you get, sometimes you'll close your eyes and you're not even visualizing anything at that point. I don't know if that's ever happened. You're like, wait a minute. Yeah. What's the jump again? Yeah. So, and I think that probably comes from just being tired, not eating right. Or, so that knowing when exactly I'm going to visualize helps keep it kind of a step-by-step, and then it's all under my control all the way up. And then once we're out of the door, it's just me and my performance. I think that definitely helps.
I'd like to highlight what you said about putting your foot in the door, and what grip you're going to take, taking that breath. I think all those steps, and if you do that on a habitual basis, you do that every jump, you do that every day, then it becomes part of your system so that when you get to competition, you're fully prepared and you don't have to waste any more mental energy thinking about those steps. So I definitely think that habit plays a part, in that training, and doing the same things over and over will help better prepare you. Is that how you approach your visualization in your daily training regimen as well, even when you're not jumping?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Like I said, when we post the dives on the board and the wall, that's still the same thing. But it's undervalued, right? All the small things of just like getting to the door is undervalued. And I definitely try to do all of that because it stays in my control. But even my daily training or visualization it's a little sporadic sometimes too. And one thing that helped me a lot was like seeing, like I could look at this right here and I say AJC, and then I could pick out of my head, okay, what kind of flow would I get with that, and where do I need to be here? And so anytime I'm sitting somewhere for a while, that kind of pops in a skydive in my head. If I see letters and numbers together, I throw it together in a skydive. So it can definitely be sporadic, but I think it also helps me to stay focused and on task rather than, well, I got 15 minutes today, I'm going to study this dive flow, or okay, it's time for the weekend, I better look over these 2 hours before we show up to train. I think being immersed with it all day, even just randomly throughout the day, keeps it fresh and keeps it in your head.
Oh, that's really good. I think I was more immersed in it at the beginning of my career, but I think now I kind of set those times aside to do it every now and then.
I'm still at the beginning, Matt.
But it's hearing this again kind of refreshes it with me, and it's I like to pick up these kind of tips and tricks and put them to use myself, and it's something that I think maybe I'll start practicing again and revisiting because I don't think you can, especially in your downtime, it's hard to visualize too much, because we spend so much time on the ground. The time that you're spending on the ground is so unbalanced with the amount of time that we're spending in the air. Actually doing the task. It's a bit different now with the tunnels. You get to spend some more time, but still,
it doesn't equate.
yeah, for sure. So we talked about round one. Now let's kind of go to the flip side of that and talk about how you felt in round 10 after the competition was over. Talking about the Indoor World Championships in France.
Oh, man. I felt like, thank goodness I made it through the war and and I didn't get killed. It was definitely a different caliber of a competition that I've ever had, and I know that it's all a competition and it's all equivalent even if it's an intermediate team, because you still have all the same feelings. But I think even more so for me at that point, because I felt like even though we had done 8-way for multiple years before that, it was never as much 8-way, and it never had as much responsibility on me as I did then, And when we were there, I was just like, we have to win this. And I didn't want to be a part of the U.S. team that drops the ball, and gives the title to someone else, and being there amongst, I guess, skydiving gods, so to speak, where they have so much experience and so many years of competing, that when I got, through round 10, I was just so happy I made it through the whole competition with no brain locks, that it didn't even matter what the score was. I remember saying, just don't call attention to myself, just do my job, just get through this, do it. And even with we had a jump with an 11 and a 9 in it. And, we always spin block 9. I'm on the cadav, and we always spin block 9 with me on the right side in my quadrant. And to get out of the switcher, because, we had the crash course, so I wasn't as good in my B slot, at that time as I was in my A slot. And I didn't have nearly the experience that everyone else had. So we did it to where I was just stayed in slot. And then, everyone, I'd be turning on the other side on the cat piece. And I was like, it got in my head. I was like, I can turn a cat either way. I got to turn a cat either way. It's no big difference. Just do it. I remember all of those feelings. And then finally, after round 10, I was like, it's over. And I did it. I made it. I felt accomplished. I kind of feel like I earned my spot a little bit. I feel like I definitely stepped up to the plate and performed.
For sure, that was a competition that was where there was a lot of pressure, and I was the alternate for that one, so I got to. It was a little more
You're
relaxed
the best
for me, but
alternate ever.
I appreciate that. And, but I could definitely feel it for you guys, and the French put the heat on you. So it was that was quite the accomplishment for that competition. Yeah. Let's shift gears a little bit now and kind of go back to family life. How do you maintain balance between being a mother and a full-time competitor and coach, a single mother at that?
Well, I mean, compared to what I was maintaining a balance with before, with 2 jobs or a full-time job and full-time college with 2 kids, smaller kids who can't feed themselves, it was just a piece of cake compared to that. But I think balancing time is always the crux of life, right? And how much time, and then when you get home, it's now I'm working again when I get home from work. So when I'm skydiving, at least when I'm balancing the time, it doesn't necessarily have that same effect on me, and I feel like I'm actually there more. So I would say it's not as hard doing this, but for anyone who hasn't come from the background of the Sonic and the college at the same time, and now they're trying, or new moms who are competitors and now they're trying to do both. I'd say just balance it to the point of don't forget that you have to black out dates or black out times to be with your family. One thing that I kind of lost with skydiving and the schedule, that because, as you know, all the weekends become full completely. Like, I don't have a free weekend. I have one free weekend from now until December. So, wow. Which is way different than the normal household. And so the weekends are kind of what you use for your family time, right? So you have to become more flexible and creative with your family time when you're trying to balance skydiving, because the kids go to school during the week and then your weekends are kind of taken up. So one way to do it is to block off a weekend, force yourself in your calendar, hey, I have this week, it's their spring break, for example, like, in April, next month the kids have their spring break. So block off, done. I don't have any jobs. At least we can have a few days together. So just prioritize those small things that matter.
Is there anything that you like to do, whether it's with your girls or just by yourself, to decompress and kind of something recreational that you enjoy doing?
Well, we used to kayak a lot, the girls and I, and again, you kind of lose some of that. And when I moved here, I didn't see much kayaking going on. In Tennessee, we had rivers around every corner, so we kayaked the rivers all the time. So I actually left my kayaks back in Tennessee for my brother to use. But we used to do that, or just watching a movie. But now they're kind of a little bit older. They're 16 and 18, so I'm begging them, hey, come downstairs and hang out with me. It's a little bit different than what, a 12-year-old or even, a 7-year-old at that point, because then you do find the time. But here it's, can we go out to eat? Hey, you want to come eat dinner with us down here? How about some pizza tonight? You're trying to force your kids to come spend time with you. So,
Have you ever been up to the U.S. National Whitewater Center up in Charlotte? That's a cool place. Jen and I were learning kayaking. We didn't get too far with it, but we went up there a couple times with a friend of ours named Nick, and he kind of started showing us the ropes, and that was really interesting. That it might be something that you guys could do in the future.
You're doing the crazy whitewater. We did the lazy river, where you're like drinking your beer on the kayak with your feet propped up. Yeah, we didn't do the whitewater. I have this big fear of drowning, and I don't. And it's completely off topic, but I don't splash water. I don't splash water in my face. Even in the shower, I just use a washcloth to wash my face because I don't like it. So I can't do the white water. I'll be peeing my pants in the kayak.
Yeah, Jen did a lot better in the kayak with the rollovers than I did, because the water's not my element either.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah, so I had some issues with that, but I just thought that just came to mind. Committing yourself to a lifestyle as a competitor requires a lot of sacrifices, but can also be very rewarding. What are some of the biggest sacrifices you made? We may have already talked about some of these, but what are some of the biggest ones, and what are some of the most rewarding?
Yeah, I think we've touched on a couple of them. The biggest sacrifices would be weekends, right? And that obviously equates to family time, because it becomes so overwhelming with skydiving, weekends being gone. And then traveling, like beforehand, I'd never traveled before, so I may have been home late or I may have worked long hours, but I was home every night. Now there's some times where I'm gone for 2 weeks and the girls are, hey, we're still here. Fortunately they're older, so they definitely, help me so much. But I still miss them, and there's that big disconnect of being gone for so long with them. But the obvious rewarding would be, hey, I'm living like the dream life over here, and not everybody even knows that it exists. So I think the balance is definitely a good balance.
Last year, excuse me. Last year, you also won the U.S. National Championships with Paraclete XP8. What was your experience like leading up to, during, and after the competition?
Yeah, we kind of touched on that. Nope, not so much for last year. With last year's lineup, we actually had a full season of training, so that was definitely a much better experience personally. And again, I had, felt like I'd earned it a little bit with the indoor meet before, and we had Steve and Andrew, and Chris saved the day with us. So Chris and I were on a 4-way team together, as well as the 8-way team. So we were cross partners in 8-way, and I just remember having that. That was a definite like, hey, we got this together, buddy. What was the question? So yeah, my experience leading up to, during, and through the competition, having a team that you like, and having Chris in there across from me, and then Michelle was of course on the team too, and a full training season definitely helped me be more prepared for the competition. I still caught myself into some traps of like the block 20. I was like, which grip do I take on BK on this one? And I even cost us a bust on that one because I got the grip and then I changed my mind. I was like, it's a terrible decision. So I learned a lot of lessons, and I remember after that jump, I was like, I gotta get over all the details and just fly what I know that I can do, because I think I may have had a little bit more pressure definitely then, because the first year you guys weren't there to compete with, and then at the indoor meet it was a crash course, so all I had to do was just survive, just don't drown, right? And now there was a lot more pressure because I had an entire season. There were expectations like, hey guys, you're going up against the Knights, and that's why y'all didn't win, because you didn't have anybody. That's why y'all won, because you didn't have anybody to compete against. And now I was like, oh crap, I've really got to do well. And I learned a lot personally in that meet of learning to let go and trusting a little bit more, because the nerves were there. But after the competition, I feel like we definitely played it cautious a little bit. I felt that in the skydives, and I wasn't sure if there were other things going on. I'm sure that BK and Kirk had a lot of reasons on why they kept the temperament the way that they did with their experience. But in my mind, I was like, I'm ready. Let's go. I'm ready for more. Let's go faster. Or, I felt like I wasn't really on the line as I was before at the indoor meet with France. I was definitely over the line at some of those things. I'm like, I'm barely surviving here.
Tunnel's a lot faster too.
Yeah.
I'm sure that plays part in it.
I think it also helps that I definitely felt more prepared because I had the full season, and that's when I started doing the 4-on-4 camps last year, and it was a huge help for me with learning the slots and the puzzle of 8-way and how everything works. Taking the blinders off is what happened with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the Russians were there too, which were obviously the better trained team at the time. Did you feel any additional pressure with them there to perform?
Yes, I did, of course. And even though that they were better trained, I think they had 700 jumps and we had 280, I think. It didn't matter. I still wanted to beat them, and I had so many of these like theories in my head of, well, if we would have pushed the pace made, more risk. I wonder so many different things you can go through your head and figure it out. But having them there definitely gave me the drive of, I want to make a statement. I want to prove something, but I can't prove something. We have to prove something.
Right.
And if we can't get the train rolling, then we have to keep the pace that we're going at. But that came with the preparation, I think, with the whole season of training.
It was a lot of fun flying with you at this year's Indoor Nationals. Love turning buzzards with you. It's if Josh Coleman is listening, it's he could take a couple pointers from you. I'm sure he'd laugh and say that himself. How do you feel you've improved since the competition in France last year?
Well, I mean, similar to the outdoor meet, it's taking the blinders off and seeing so much. I feel I've improved a ton, even going back, even going back and looking at, some of the jumps from last year to this year. It's more controlled and more confident. I was
going to say, just from the outside looking in, you appear a lot more confident to me.
Yeah, you can definitely see and feel that difference. But watching the videos, I'm like, oh, yeah, you can definitely see I'm just terrified. And here it's more of like, I've got to do the job, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it the best that I can. And I feel like having the right team around me certainly makes that better. I remember right before this indoor meet, and we had Sully out there watching us, and a couple of the other high rollers in there, like, oh boy. So I remember the first like warm up we had. It was one of the evenings after I've done Hell Week with all the other 8-way teams, which is a different pace. And I get in there and I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I'm visualizing. And I'm like, oh, okay, we're playing for real. There is no holding back. All right, I got it. And so even after that, I left that night, and that wasn't even the competition. That was just the warm up. And I left that night. I was like, wow, we are on fire. We are so connected right now that it's not a matter of, are we going to win? It's just a matter of how much are we going to beat the opponent? It's like, how far ahead are we going to be? And I wasn't even thinking about, at that point, like, when I had, the previous competition, even at the France, it was, oh my gosh, who's going to beat us? Who's out there? Who do we have to do? It was a totally different feeling whenever we were here. It was just our performance, my performance. And I think maybe that maturity came with the time on the team, or even the time with the training and then the 4-on-4 camps. But that's what I had in my head. And after that night, and then I knew it didn't matter. We were going to do it well, and I just needed to find my piece in there, and it was magical. A lot of things came together. It was one of my favorite competitions ever, for sure. Yeah,
it was a great meet. I find in those situations that I still get the jitters for every round, because I feel then that I've got a lot of self-induced pressure that I put on myself and I put on us as a team to outperform ourselves.
Yeah, I think if you don't get the jitters, you're not giving it enough respect.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. So we were talking about 4-way a little bit earlier. During competition, the 4-way and 8-way events often coincide or run back to back. And you compete in both for a lot of the competitions you do, which is huge. That takes a lot of energy, mental and physical. How do you find that affects your overall performance? Do you feel any physical or mental fatigue that becomes an issue to your performance in either event?
Yeah. I feel like, there can be some fatigue, but I also feel like I've kind of prepared myself for this 4-way and 8-way from the beginning, because that's all I knew was 4-way and 8-way. I started out with just 4-way and 8-way. So I was learning both at the same time. And then at the indoor meets, I'd compete on different teams, although it wasn't as high level as XP8 is. But still, I remember, for example, was it 2017? The indoor meet for 2017, I think it was on 5 different teams that year.
Wow.
And I was just like, all right, bye guys. Hey guys. Bye. And like standing in the antechamber for multiple teams, like it became this joke going around, like, Jeana, How many teams are you not on? and it was because if anybody wanted to pick up here, I'll fly with you. And I think I just kind of pruned myself for it because it's all I've ever known. And I've always been a multitasker with everything. If I'm not, talking and answering text messages or emails at the same time and doing multiple things at once, I feel like I'm wasting time. But with that, it makes it a little bit more of an edge for me. I feel like if I was just doing one 4-way or 8-way, I feel like they say the opposite, that you'll dilute yourself if you do 4-way and 8-way. And I feel like for me personally, how I perform, it's the opposite.
It just keeps you on your toes?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I think so, yeah.
So at World Cup, refresh my memory, were you doing both events at the World Cup? You were just doing 8-way, right?
Yeah.
And do you feel that the vibe was a bit different for you there?
Yeah, I was sitting at home like, can we go now? Can we go now? Hey, Jeana, you still have 2 hours. Oh, what about now? It was one of those things of like I had way too much time to pace the floors. So I still performed well. I think we did a really good World Cup meet, but I definitely like doing both better.
I've done it a few times. One of the times was in 1998 at the World Cup in Évora, Portugal, and I liked it. I really enjoyed it, but I found it was fatiguing for me because we just had super long days there. We had some bad weather, and they stretched the days out, and we would stay there sometimes until it didn't get dark until 8 o'clock at night. So we were there for a super long time. So in that situation, and I think it's been something that's been very difficult and almost impossible for many teams that have tried to do both at the world level anyway to win both. I think there's only one person that's done it in the history of the sport. But I can definitely see how it could keep you on your toes. We talked about you being prepared, maybe doing all those teams at the indoor event has maybe prepared you for doing both at the same time at competitions. But also, I wanted to ask about your physical training regimen and how that's helped you prepare, and what is your physical training regimen like?
Okay, so to be honest, I was never an exerciser before skydiving, and everyone who knows me knows like I've lost a lot of weight since I started skydiving to now. And now it's not so much of losing weight because I'm not losing any weight now. I feel smaller, but I'm not losing weight. I'm just gaining more muscle. So finding the right tune-up in there, I can't give myself any credit for that. I have to give Kirk the credit on a lot of that, and nutrition has played a big role in it. But for someone who never exercised until 3 years ago, it's a whole new world, and I find myself in the hole of Google trying to say what's right for me and how do I do this and and then I find out everything that's wrong, and so we ended up getting a nutritionist that's helped us with counting macros and adding more protein and helping make the right choices there. So that helped a lot. And then as far as like the workout and the physical training regimen goes, that's all a Kirk thing. We've got kind of the setup that you have in your garage. It's like a gym and a big whiteboard where I have to write on there, did I work out today? And if it's only one push-up that I do, I have to put it down. And I've found that if I say I've got to work out for 45 minutes now and I got to make sure I do this and do that, then I kind of lose the whole focus behind it. So I've had to shift gears a little bit on that and just say I have to do something every day. I can't, and it has to be a forced exercise of some sort. So I can't just say, oh, I swept the floors today, that counts, Right. So even if it's just I got to do 5 push-ups real quick and then I go write it on the board, it keeps me accountable for doing something. And then, 1 push-up a day for 8 months is better than no push-ups a day for 8 months. So it just kind of forces me into it. Kirk is very creative with training, and like, I don't know, have you heard of the hula stick?
I haven't.
So it's like it has 3 sides, and it's blue, white, and red. And you throw it to your partner, say white, and they have to grab it with the white side, or red. Cool. So it's quick reflex, and you say left hand white. And so small things like that he implements for us, and then we make it fun, but it's still some sort of some training, like eyes and
I think
hand and
hand-eye coordination is huge. I juggle sometimes in between sets in the gym. I'll juggle, while I'm kind of on a short rest, and I find that helps keep my hand-eye coordination fresh. What are some of the other things that you structure in your workouts? Does he design all the workouts for you? Do you structure certain exercises?
Mostly it's arms. My legs, I don't have to do those as often, but we know that I'm weaker in my arms, so I've been focused on that primarily more. And it's not heavy weights. I have like 8-pound, little hand weights that I'll use, and I'll do 4 sets of 20 and take more. 1 set, take a break, do another, but 4 sets of that, and then triceps, biceps. So we do those. And then recently I started doing the box jumps a lot more because of my new outside center slot and 4-way. I got to get off that plane. So now I'm thinking, okay, I need a lot more of the legs here for the exit Y. So I'm trying to just squeeze that in there.
Explosive core and hip power.
Yeah.
So, I was just sorry. I'm still thinking about the structure to your workouts. You both have made incredible transformations. Kirk's lost a bunch of weight, and I was just giving you a compliment on your arms the other day when we were training. So I think it's a testament to the structure and the accountability that you guys have. I think that's great. And if there's any more light that you'd like to shed on that structure that might help other people out?
So for the people who were like me and had no idea about exercising or even what relates to skydiving, someone asked me the other day, like, how do I exercise for skydiving? One thing that I've done in the past is those grip strength exercises. You can stick one of those little handheld things in your car, and when you're, when at a red light or something, like I said, every little bit helps because I hated exercising. And then I do tan, so this is kind of maybe personal or over the line if you want to omit it, but in the tanning bed, I'm working on planks, and I'm like, laying in the tanning bed, lifting my legs up, counting, okay, and I'll take a rest and count again. So it's just so many small things that I feel helps me to do it because I'm not one that likes to go to the gym.
Okay.
So I try to wiggle it in.
So that seems to be a common thread between like the visualization and the working out, that you don't just set aside blocks of time for it. You kind of parcel it out and fit it in wherever you can to your schedule, so that there is no excuse. Because I think some people, we all from time to time tend to come up with the excuses that I don't have this chunk of time to be able to do this. But if you do it like that, it's all going to add up probably to that amount of time or maybe more.
I never thought about that. I guess maybe that's why I've never liked the gym, because you have to set aside travel time to get there, workout time, change your clothes, everything. And my life was so busy, I never even thought about it. But yeah, I guess I don't have a structured time. I just throw it in everywhere I can.
And it's obvious you've mentioned Kirk a few times and how he's been mentoring you. I imagine he would probably be one of your role models and mentors. Would you like to tell us more about him? And are there any other role models and mentors that you have?
Oh, for sure. Kirk, I mean, number one, obviously. He's in my head all the time, even with the small of impose your will on him. It's even the extra training with the eye and hand coordination, or a book. Here, read this book. So many small things. Like, I never watched sports before, ever. And he's got me watching football coaches because it relates to us and how we, know. So there's so many things that it's just I feel like he's this endless sea of knowledge, and it's all right there for me. So he would be an obvious mentor or role model. BK is definitely another. The man is just, he is a maniac for sure. And like you said, he has this like raw ability to pull every ounce that you have out of you into making you something like you didn't even know you were capable of doing. And I think that he's done a lot of that with me. He's been my peace partner with 8-way for so many times. And one of the things that I love about BK, it's never good enough. We feel like we have the best block 6. Our piece is faster than anybody's, and then never fails. We get out of the tunnel, and I'm like, that was the best move I've ever had. And he's pulling me aside. Hey, let's work on this. Hey, what do you try this? Go. Okay, let's do it. So that's something that BK has definitely helped me with, is it's, even if it's the best, it's not good enough. And I think for sure that helps even in skydiving, because even if you're number one, you still have to keep getting better and hold it. So it's never going to be good enough. One thing that I did with him the most is study him. I know that we had mentioned Kurt being my mentor, but studying the skydive, it's been BK more so than anybody with 8-way, because he's my piece partner. And, Kirk's told me, hey, when you're going to study your B slot, do it better than your piece partner. May not ever happen, but have that in your head. And so I was like, all right, I'm taking this to heart. And I literally studied everything, even to how the guy keys. And if you watch some of our skydives, I feel like I've really excelled in mimicking BK, and that's helped me in so many ways. Role models, obviously, Eliana and even Jen. She's been huge to me. I remember the first time I saw the Golden Knight girls flying, I was like, I want to do that one day. I didn't know I was going to be doing it a couple of years. I was thinking, 10 years from now. Right. But it's all of the small things that these heroes or mentors, role models, that they're just so humbling, and they give you a piece of them, is what I'm trying to say with that. And I think I get a little bit of something from everybody around me.
Yeah, it's really cool for me to be able to be on the team with Kirk too, because I've looked up to him for so many years. I remember years ago when I first started and watching him with airspeed, I'd get some VHS tapes with airspeed on there, and I would just, study him, study their moves, and yeah, he's always been a dominating personality. I love all his, one-liners that you're talking about. It's really entertaining, but they really stick with you in the way he delivers them. Stick in your mind as well. And one of the traits you were talking about, as far as high performers and high achievers, never being fully satisfied with whatever they do. I was reading the book recently called Relentless, and he was talking about Kobe Bryant, and great book. I highly suggest it. And they were just talking about how Kobe and Michael Jordan, they're when they get done, they're never fully satisfied, even after they've won the World Championships. They're looking to the next one, and they're thinking about what they could have done better, and not necessarily celebrating their success, to the level that maybe some of their other teammates might be. So,
yeah, and I think just one more hint on that with like Kirk and BK is you see these guys who are legends in the sport, so to speak, and they invented a lot of it. And then you see them with the younger generation of skydivers, like the newer ones. I'm new, I'm a baby in the sport. But they still have no problem adapting and learning and changing. And I think that makes them different. That's why they are legend. That's why they are winners, is because when they get to the top, they don't have that mentality of, I won. No, it's, okay, how do I get better? And you get better by not having that in your head of like, I'm on top of my food chain. Listen to what I say. What I say is, the golden rule. No, I'm learning that with Airspeed XP8. We have a lot of those conversations in the team room of like, what? Let's talk technical on this block, or let's see this setup, and what about this outside turn versus this inside turn? And you can see the minds of everybody just going together. And I think I really like that dynamic in our team with the legends who are easy to be like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. Let's try it. And then it's a separator.
Yeah, it is super cool to be in that environment, and I really enjoy it too. And it's something that I think it's absolutely necessary to have that, because if you don't, there's always somebody that's going to be bigger and better and going to be coming out there to win that's not in that fixed mindset. So you always have to have that growth mindset, and not get too comfortable in your ways, for sure. You've already achieved an incredible amount of success, especially given the relatively short amount of time that you've been in the sport. You're an inspiration to many, and more specifically, I'm sure you're a role model for many women in the sport. What advice do you have for those looking to compete at a high level?
You touched on women, so we'll start there. I think competing at a high level, first and foremost, omit the fact that you're a woman and just compete at a high level. It doesn't matter. I think that has certainly helped me. I don't want to get caught up on any differences or size difference, experience difference. If you want to compete at a high level, compete at a high level. And it takes, like we talked about this whole meeting of all the small little things, it takes over you. You can't just say, I'm going to compete at a high level and then expect to show up on a weekend where you haven't thought about anything and you haven't done any outside work. You can't just show up and say, I'm going to compete at a high level and win. So my advice is, if you want to do it, then know that you're going all in. And don't make excuses and make yourself the victim of the circumstance or anything. You improvise and you go in there with a mentality of like, I'm better than you, and I'm better than you, and we're going to win. And I think that's a huge factor.
That's great advice. I really appreciate our conversation. Thanks so much, Jeana.
Thanks, Matt.